All right, tonight we'll be in the book of Genesis, chapter 11. What verse is it? 4, 5?
6.
Verse 6. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I mean, it has to keep me in prayer because I need to be. We have a quiz tonight from chapter 9, verse number 4. We'll pass can you help me pass those out? We have a short quiz from the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 4, through Genesis, chapter 11, verse 4. And I encourage you to do as many as you can. I do not have those posted online. I guess I don't really post those on our website because we don't go over them there. Possibly I could. I hadn't thought about that. That might get confusing. I have to put them in a different place. All right. So we're going to go over these 10 questions. It shouldn't take us too long. Okay. So give us about 5 minutes and we'll have these done. 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes. Sure did. All right, so we'll give 5 minutes for this. And G should be capitalizing God. It did that on its own. All right. Let's see. Okay. You got any extra tests? Do you have any extras?
He's good.
I said, you have any extras for him? Oh, you already got one. Oh, good for you. Oh, you knew it was coming, didn't you? That's all right. All right, about 2 minutes. Well, we just right there. Anybody at number 6 yet?
I did. I looked it up. I cheated. I sort of remember that verse. I was asking that night.
Hey, brother. Too early. Yeah, there you go. It's all right. Oh, brother, I'm too early. All right. All right, Sister Bonnie, you done?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else done? Everybody else finished? All right. We'll give about 1 minute left. 1 minute left. Try to do it off your memory as much as you can. See what you know. Okay, you ready? Let's start. In Genesis 9 and 6, we find capital punishment. What does God say concerning capital punishment in this verse? Yeah, if you shed man's blood, by man shall blood be shed. I think that's it. Go to 9 and 6. It says, whosoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. We talked about it, how that if you kill a man kills you. Number 2, God declared this That life is in this. What is it?
The blood.
The blood. Who saw his father's nakedness?
Ham.
Ham. It's Ham. Verse 22 of chapter 9. What was his son's name?
Cush.
No. Well,
Cain,
that's a
Cain.
good point.
Cain.
That's a good point because Ham's son was Cush. Correct. So you're absolutely right. That's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. But it's Canaan what I was looking for because he was implicated when God put out the punishment. But technically that is right. Thank you, brother. What was the grandfather? Who was the grandfather of Nimrod? Ham. The people were of one language and one speak. From what direction did they travel? From the east. I think that says it in chapter 10, or 11, verse number 2. Name the plain, that's P-L-A-I-N, in which they dwelt before they made the tower. Shinar. I think it's Shinar. Shinar. Plains of Shinar. They're somewhat famous. Number 8. In addition to the tower, what else did they decide to build? The city. Remember a city? Okay, verse number 3. Let's see. Verse number 4. Go, let us build us a city and a tower. We're going to build a city and a tower.
Okay.
All right. The tower. The tower building out. This other struggle. Let's do this. I can't even. I don't even make sense when I wrote it because I'm not really thinking clear today. It's a building the tower, and this other structure was to do this.
Name it. That's what you got to name it. What are you talking
Yeah. Throw out number 9 because that was Syria, not Syria. That was whatever the iMac has. It just messed it up. Finally, how high was the tower to be?
To heaven.
To heaven. It was supposed to go to heaven as high as heaven was. All right. So I'm hoping you remember some of the key points out of that. Number 9. Please mark that one out. Goodness.
We should have said Cush because Cush is the father of Canaan.
I thought Cush was
Cush is the father of
Nimrod.
Nimrod.
And he's the son of Ham.
Ham. Mm-hmm.
So in Genesis chapter 11, verse number 6, Genesis 11:6, and we're going to read about, we talked about what God did when the people are one. And he's going to change that by changing their language. And we talked about that, what he did. The Bible said in verse 6, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. And I took you back to chapter 6, where it says every imagination of their heart. Now, one thing I didn't bring out is sometimes things that are not said in the Bible jump out at you. And it was pretty glaring here. And I didn't pick up on it. I'm slow. I'm very slow. But did you notice what it says in verse number 6? The Lord said, the people is one. Everybody in the world right now tries to be united in one. These people succeeded in being one. Now, that's unique because the world will be a one order during the tribulation period. But here they became one, and God said it was a bad thing when people become one. The only time it's okay when they become one is when God makes them one. We are all one in Christ. But the people achieved that being in sin. It says clearly they were one. Number 7, let us go down and there confound their language, and that they may not understand one another's speech. That's a pretty big thing. By the way, if you don't understand someone else's speech, you don't understand it. Anybody here know French or Spanish?
I know a little bit of Spanish.
Spanish?
French.
Okay.
I'm French, I know.
So I know a little bit. I've been studying some of the Spanish. Now, especially watermelon. Like we love watermelon. It's sandia. And grapes are uva, UVA. Learning what things are. Como te fue? How did it go?
Mm-hmm.
Como está? How are you? You start learning those things, but anybody else, they don't know what you're talking about. If you don't understand the language, it's just gibberish. And so you have to, they got those things I can interpret for you. But, so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence from the face of the earth. He confounded their language. But in essence, what he was really doing was what? Scattering them. So if you think back, why did he do this? To scatter them. What does God not want them to do? I don't want you to be one. Because if you're one in the wrong reason, it is dangerous. You'll fly planes into a tower if you're one for the wrong reason. That's what happened. So God scattered them because they were one. It's a wonderful thing to be one, but you can't do it outside of God. This is one of those times when you read the Bible, this is a very important place. If you try to achieve something on your own, what God has, you will destroy it. And that's what happens. And God said, if you do this, every imagination of their heart they're going to do wrong. They'll be the same way right over again, over and over and over. So we're going to change their language. Therefore, the name of the place is called Babel, because the Lord did there confound their language, the language of all the earth. And from this did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. They're really scattered deeply now. Now, Nimrod, who was he? Grandson of
Ham.
Now, it doesn't take too long, but we realize in the second generation, so we have Noah, Ham, Cush, Nimrod, and that's when, boom, they all scattered. Now, we looked on the map to see where they went, right? Japheth went one place, Shem went one place, Ham went the other place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they settled. And this is when it happened, and God did it. So you can almost extrapolate that they probably scattered based on their language, but their language must have been according to their families.
Well, they could only come from Ham, Japheth, or
Are you muted?
No?
Sister says she can't hear you.
Okay. Brother Cam, can you help us? I don't know how to do that, brother. I might mess it up tonight. Yeah, I mean, the micro. Oh, I know what it is. Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I just realized. Get settings, and we go to the audio, and it's on the MacBook Pro, and it's catching it. Oh yeah, it's on. Come here, brother Cam. Would you look at this for me? Oh, you're gonna turn his on to see. Okay, the audio is on. Great. It's on. Yeah, it's on. Thank you, brother. Okay, so it's set up. We thought the audio wasn't working, but the audio is working. Audio is working. Because Brother Wendell pulled it up.
Okay. I texted her.
Yeah, it's up. It's up. All right, so again, this is a unique place where the people are one, and God says it's a bad thing for you to be one. And it's a terrible thing when people who are the wrong ideas get together and become one. It becomes an absolute atrocity. When you take people with the wrong ideas, put them together, and they have more power, and that's why God does this. And the other thing was if all of Ham's people went south, Japheth was one way and Shem the other, then they probably had the languages considerably similar where they went. Into the comments, questions. Okay, now we're going to go into the genealogy or the ancestry of Abram. Going where did Abraham come from? Now I'm going to, for those of you who follow me online, if I'm going to talk, when I use this, I say 5-5. You know what that means? Remember? That's when Adam died. 5-5. 5 times 5 is 25, and that's when Abram dies. We're getting ready to talk about Abram, is what we're doing now. Those are the two prominent men in the Old Testament. Chapter 5, verse 5, we find the death of Adam. Then in chapter 25, you find the death of Abraham. So let's go to find the genealogy. Where did Abraham come from? We're going to start here in this verse number 10. I'm going to read through these until we get down to his name, okay? Let's go. Now, these are the generations of Shem. By the way, Abraham came from the line of
Shem.
There was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Who did Jesus come from? Shem, right? We're going to Abram. It's got to come out through Abram, right? These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years. And he begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Salah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber. Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg. Wow, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. Peleg lived 30 years and begat Ruah. Peleg lived after he begat Ruah 209 years and begat sons and daughters. And Ruah lived 230 years and begat Sereg. And Ruah lived after he begat Sereg 207 years and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. And that's the man. It's one of the early ones. And Serug lived after begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. There's Terah. That's an important one. Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years. And he begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father, Terah, in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. So Lot's daddy Haran died in Ur of the Chaldees, which is where all of them are from. And Abram and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren, and she had no child. This is the order or the lineage, the genealogy of Abraham. Where did Abram come from? Abram, there was Terah and Nahor, father and grandfather. Terah, it says Terah was living when his son Haran died. And they died in Ur of the Chaldees. By the way, where is the Chaldees at? Babylon. When you read the word the Chaldeans, very similar to the word Babylon, okay? Very similar. Almost the same, Babylon. But this Ur of the Chaldees is where they came from. So now we have Terah, and we've got his three sons, Abram, Nahor, Haran. There are three sons of Terah.
Do you think you're triplets?
I don't know, everybody says that because
just
it makes them
like
all the
Noah,
same.
I think them three were triplets.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Because usually they just say one son,
Yeah,
but this says three, and
yeah,
Noah
yeah.
said three.
Abram, Nahor took them wives. So two of the men took wives. Obviously, Haran had a child with a woman, right?
Mhm.
Didn't say much about her.
Yeah.
We know that she is not on the scene, but Lot's by himself. Now we have barren Sarah, and we get to chapter 12. Now, chapter 12 is a unique chapter of the Bible, tells us everything we need to know. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, past tense. Where do you find more information about this occurrence in the Bible? That's right, Acts chapter 7. When you read about Stephen, when he gave his famous speech, he used a lot in there. If you go to the book of Acts chapter 7, and you look at the sermon of Stephen, you begin to find some of these things that he lists that are in addition to what he said. It says, men and brethren, and Father's heart, the God of glory, in chapter 7 and verse number 2, appeared in our father Abram when he was in Mesopotamia before he dwelt in Haran. So God appeared to him in Haran, before he went to Haran, and when he dwelt in Ur. So let me write it on the board so you'll have an understanding. Let's say this is the Great Sea. This will be Jerusalem. This, let's say this will be the Sea of Galilee. This will be the Sea of Galilee. Ur would be somewhere about here. And they're going to travel to Haran. And then they're going to travel here. There it is. But this is the starting point. This is where it all began. Ur of the Chaldees. That's kind of where, if you look on the map, that's kind of where you'll find those in his travels of Abram. But in chapter 25, because if you read in the book of Genesis, you get to thinking perhaps he was over in Haran when God called him. But it says in chapter 12 and verse 1, God had said, right? God had said to him.
Yeah, he had said it to Abram, so he said it before.
Right. So
Where
when
did you say he said it at?
Ur of the Chaldees, look in Acts chapter 7.
And
Acts chapter 7, verse 2.
Acts 17.
That's why the harmony of the Gospels and harmony of the Bible itself. It says when he dwelt in Haran, before he dwelt in Haran. Verse number, actually, it's verse number, was it 2?
Before he dwelt in Haran.
Thank you, brother.
While
Yeah.
he was still in Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before he went to Haran.
Yeah. Before he went
God
to
called him from there. That's always that discrepancy, and that's where you find it. And he says 3 things, and there are 3 things you need to remember. You got to get out of your country, away from your father's house, and from your kindred. There's 3 things. Lord said, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, into the land that I will show thee. When God called him, the first thing he talked about is what we talk about in the book of Leviticus, in the book of Numbers. When you read about the Old Testament law, it's about separation. Always separation. The first thing God told him, you have to separate from everybody else. Get out from your country, from your father's house, and from your kindred. Go to a land I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation. And I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Now, if you are obedient, and you separate yourself from the world, I'm going to make your name great. You're going to be somebody. I will make of thee a great nation. That's how many people he's going to have. I will bless thee and make thy name great. And his name is great. I mean, you read the book of Genesis, you got from chapter 12 to chapter 25, well, chapter 11, all the way to chapter 25. That's a lot of chapters, right? That's what, 14 chapters out of, 50? Just about Abram. Just on Abram. And make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. In the next verse, he says, all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed by you. Here's how he says it. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. Did you know what he's saying? Everything's going to hinge on you. On you. I'm going to bless people that bless you, and I'm going to curse people that curse you. This is God taking out a man just for himself. In other words, you don't worry about blessing somebody, I'll do it. Don't worry about cursing them, I'll do it. Everything is going to be done by me for you. This is all the work. I'll bless them that bless thee, curse them that curse you. When you think of that saying, well, that's wonderful that God's going to do all these things for him. As opposed to thinking of it like this, God's doing all the work. He's doing everything for him. I want to bless them to bless you, curse them to curse thee. Then it says, in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Everybody in the world has been blessed by Abram. If you don't believe that, you take 9, 10, and 11, the book of Romans. The book of Romans, chapter 9, 10, and 11. You'll find where the parenthetical chapters that God has not cast away his people. Salvation is of the Jews.
That's right.
Don't boast because it's the root bears you. You don't bear the root bears you. Everything comes by Abram. And everybody is blessed by him. Jesus is of the lineage of Abram. In fact, in Genesis chapter 15, verse 6, clearly it says that Abram believed God, and that's what Jesus said. You had to have faith. All right. So now we have this great statement. Chapter 12, verse 1, 2, and 3. The great statement, right? Now let's find what happened. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 70 and 5 years old when he departed out of Haran. Where's that here? Now, the reason he left is because why?
God told him to leave, right?
Well, God had told him to go him.
When he left Haran, okay.
His father died. That's the only reason in the world he left. He still was under the control of his father, and Daddy said, we're going to Haran. And he went with his father. And he'd have stayed there until his daddy died. Now, if you talk about Abraham, he was not the most obedient man in the world. Get thee out of that country. Well, he got that, but he didn't go where God wanted him. Get away from your kindred. Well, Lot's with him. Get away from your father's house. He got his father with him. And you'll find as God disciples this man, as God works with Abram, he's going to bring him along because Abram makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, if you don't think about it like that, but he's made a lot of mistakes so far. Think about it. This is huge. The Bible said, and Lot, look at verse number 4. He departed, and Lot went with him. Didn't God clearly say, from your kindred?
Your people, yeah.
And Lot, his brother's son, Lot went with him. That's one of those, God tries to help us. He makes a blessing to you, and what you do, you mess up with it. What does he do? He puts up with it. He'll make things, and he starts to working it out. Father dies. Well, number 5, and Abram took Sarah his wife and Lot and his brother's son and all their substance that they had gathered and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. Perhaps they had some slaves they took with them. And they went forth to go into and underline this in your Bible if you underline, here's that mention of the land of Canaan. Yeah. And into the land of Canaan they went. Came. Why? Because that's where God is. We studied this with Noah, right? He can't come into the ark. Go forth from the ark. They came. This is God's country. We say God's country. This is God's country. God even required, if you were going to be a resident in the land of Canaan, you had to be obedient to all the laws that were there. Every stranger. Sorry, you're going to be judged the same way everybody else is. This is God's country. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem. Everybody remembers, that's the word for Shechem, Shechem. It is where Rehoboam went to get anointed to be the next king, you may recall. It was a capital of the northern kingdom at one point, at least at one point, they kept it there. But it says, under the plain of Moreh. The plain of Moreh, that's the first plain he comes to. And the Canaanite was then in the land. In other words, God send you to a land, I'm going to give it to you. The Canaanite's there. And the Lord appeared unto Abram. The Lord appeared. Interesting. God appears to him. The Lord appeared and said unto him, unto thy seed will I give this land. Get into the land. Now finally he gets there, and when he gets there, the first appearance of God is to say, your people, this is your land. Your seed, this is your territory. All this belongs to you. I will give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared to him. What's the place where he built that altar? What does it say? Plain of Moreh. Where did he build an altar first when he got to the promised land? Well, it was in Canaan land in the plain of Moreh. He built an altar there. There he built an altar unto the Lord who had appeared unto him. It was important when God spoke to him. He wanted to make sure that he stopped and he sacrificed and he worshiped God there. He built an altar there. And he removed, where from? The plain of Moreh. Right? Yeah. He went through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh. Now he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel. A mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the east and Hai on the east. Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. There he built an altar. That's the second altar. Right? Mm-hmm. That's the second altar he builds. He called and then called upon the name of the Lord. Now that's the two things. First of all, we find in the plain of Moreh, he built an altar because God spoke to him. But when he gets here with Bethel on the east and Hai on the Bethel on the west and Hai on the east, he builds an altar and he calls on the name of the Lord. Here it is. Called upon the name of the Lord. You read that about the son of Seth. What was the son of Seth? Adam, Seth, and he called. That's when men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Should know that one, should we? Enos. Let's see if it was Enos. In that chapter 4 or 5. Chapter 4.
In Genesis.
Yes, in verse 26. Chapter 4, verse 26. And he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. All right. Here, Abraham calls on the name of the Lord. And really, they're going to identify this as Bethel. This will come up again in chapter 13 about Bethel. So he calls on the name of the Lord, and Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. Now, so what have we got? Things are going good. He's in the land of Canaan. Father's gone. He's gotten away from his father's house. He's gotten away from his land, but he hasn't got rid of his kindred. He's doing good. What happens? What happens in everybody's life? God allows adversity to come. So the first test of adversity in this man's life wasn't just now, because he was tested because of his father and his nephew. God took care of the father, but the nephew's still there. Now you wonder if God is going to take care of the nephew, but what's about to happen? You always wonder the plan of God. You know, he does something, you don't realize what he was doing all along, right? You had no idea that's what he was doing. Movies are like that. If you get one where you can circle back around and figure out what he was doing at the beginning, it works out. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was very grievous. Bad mistake. Got a famine. Abram went down. Abram left because the land that God gave him because it was a famine. God gave you a gift. God gives something to you, and it's too hard, so you just say, I'll just quit. I'm going to leave it. And he leaves the land that God gave him. It wasn't a good thing to do. Was not a very good thing to do. But he did it anyway. And he goes towards the south. It's a grievous famine, really bad. Can't find much to eat. Terrible. It came to pass when he was come near into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Now, if he was 75 years old when he left Haran, how old would Sarah be? How much older was Abram than Sarah? 10 years. Thank you, brother. So she's about 65, but she is a beautiful lady. She's very fair. He said, Look, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife. And they will, quote, look at it says here, they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Now, what is the logic that he's using? What is he trying to achieve? Yeah, save his own neck, don't he? Is he thinking about Sarah? How precious is the womb of Sarah?
That's his problem.
That's where the promise comes from. He's not even thinking about it.
Jesus is coming from.
He's not even thinking about the promise of God. He's paying no attention to it. All he cares about is his own neck. In fact, he does it twice. In chapter 20 of the book of Genesis, he'll even tell him, hey, the Lord put me in a bad position. So when we left from Ur to Chaldees, I told my wife, tell everybody you're my sister so it'll be well with me. You may notice he doesn't have a lot of respect for Sarah. She is his wife, but that's just about as far as it goes. And he asked her to do something for him, as like a good wife, she always does. Now, this is the time when they go down and they're going to see Pharaoh. But with Abimelech, even he'll say, well, the woman told me this. I preached on this not long ago. But turn to Genesis chapter 20. Let's go ahead and get the end of the story right quick. In Genesis chapter 20, you'll see it here. Verse 11, and Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. She became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, this is thy kindness which thou shalt show unto me. At every place whither we shall come, say of me, he is my brother. He made that pact with her way back then. That's why he does it so much. He'd been saying that. She's my sister. She's not my wife. Well, so what happens? So here in verse number 11 of chapter 12, he tells her the reason why, reminds her, they're going to kill me, verse 12. 30, say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, let me well with me, my soul alive because of thee. In other words, you'll save my life. And that's the most important thing. Somewhat selfish. And it came to pass and that when Abram was coming to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was, and I underline this in my Bible, very fair. Yep, Abraham wasn't lying. He thought she was a beautiful woman. Everybody else said the same thing. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. In other words, they said, Pharaoh, you got to see this woman. This is a woman you need to take for your wife. Now, that's the way women were treated in those days, okay? She was a sister. Now, of course, with her father being dead, right? If you go back and look, Genesis chapter 20, look at the relationship if you see it here. It says, she is the daughter of my father. Is his father dead?
Yes.
Yes. And when a woman's father is dead and she's not married, she's under a brother. Women were always protected by a man. So it would not have been unusual to see this. Pharaoh thinks she's just his sister, so all the princes are saying, that's a fair woman, man. She ain't married. You could have her. Well, 16, and he entreated Abram well for her sake. Now, wait a minute. This is what happened. The brother, that Pharaoh says, this is the brother. He's in charge of her. But he's going to give her to me, so I'm going to give him a lot of money. He treated them well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and asses or donkeys, and men servants and maid servants, and she asses or donkeys and camels. I mean, loads this man up with wealth. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife. And what does God say? Abram's wife. You can lie on God, but God knows the truth. God knows the truth. He said, that's your wife. You're lying. You're not doing what's right. Wait a minute. Abram, you're supposed to be the father of all these nations. But God is having to disciple this man. He's got to grow just as every Christian does. You come up in your life and you know the Lord's will, you get some of it right, but you mess up. Now, he's already given up this woman and her womb, which is the most precious thing in the world right now. Even our salvation hinges on the womb of Sarah. Pharaoh called Abram, and he said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me she is thy wife? Now, how would he know that? You know, God told him. He plagued him, didn't he? You know, these people don't know God, but guess what? God talks to people that are ungodly. As we said not long ago, half of the dreams that you assign in the Bible to ungodly men get half of the dreams. Abimelech later will have a dream. Nebuchadnezzar is going to have a dream. When Joseph's day, Pharaoh is going to have a dream. God comes to evil people in a dream. God tells people. In chapter 20, you'll find that God even talked to Abimelech. Well, he goes and says here, Abram, why do you lie to me? Look at this. He plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why saidst thou she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to make me to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. Get out of my sight. Why? Because trouble came. This man was nothing but trouble there. I mean, you think of this sinner. I welcome you in. You come in. You lie to me. I'm being good to you. I give you all these presents. How do you treat me? I'm plagued because of you. Take your wife and get out of here. That's pretty much what he said. By the way, did he ask him to give that to gifts? No. Yeah, you know why? I believe he knows that God did this. Now, God is angry with him, but wasn't it Abram that did wrong?
Yeah.
How many times has God took up for you and you know good and well you was wrong? And God fixed it for you. Other people suffered, guess what? And God still takes care of you and you feel so guilty. Why is God good to me? But he is. This is what happened to Abram. This ain't the only time. No, by the way, this ain't just nobody. This is Abram. His name ain't changed yet. But it says, and Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. Everything went with him. Now we got chapter 12. You've got chapter 12. Only two big things I remember about chapter 12. The promise to Abram, and when he had a famine and went down to Egypt. Why did he go down to Egypt? For the wrong reason. When he got to Egypt, did he lie? He lied on. Did he cause trouble to other people? Yes. All this came about because when he faced adversity, he decided, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't stay here. I've added up the cost, and it's too much. We got to find something to eat. I know God wanted us to have this land, but God ain't providing like I wanted him to. Pretty much what he said. It's his own fault. All right, now chapter 13. These are monumental chapters. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and, quote, Lot with him into the south. They went back to Canaan land. And he mentions Lot again, of course, because Lot's with him, and God wants to remind us that Lot is still there. And Abram was very rich. Where did he get his riches from? Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
He went down to a place that God would always talk about Egypt as a bad place. And this is where God blessed him. If I could say it a different way, you mess up and do everything wrong, but God still blesses you. Not only does he not punish you for what you've done wrong, he blesses you. I mean, it's the opposite. Where's the reproof? Where's the rebuke of Abram for what he did? None. God is discipling this man. He's bringing him along. And he says he was very rich in cattle and in silver and in gold. And he went on his journeyings from the south, even to where? Bethel. You know, when he left Bethel and started south, that's when he messed up. Famine coming to land. But Abram knew what to do. He said, you go back to where things was good. He goes back to Bethel. If you go back to chapter 12, verse 8, Bethel was on the west and Hai on the east. And he built an altar. He called on the name of the Lord. What does he do? The Bible said he went from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been. In other words, when you mess up, get back on that horse, go right back where you started. Where did I mess up? Right here. Let me start right there and start right back again. Thank you, Lord. I got it. Let me get back and start over again. Where I left off, he goes right back. It says, where he had been. If you mark in your Bible, mark this here. Clearly it says, his tent, where his tent had been. At the beginning between Bethel and Hai. Unto the place of the altar which he had made at the first. And there, what did he do again? They called on the name of the Lord. Just as he said in verse number 8 of chapter 12. He called on the name of the Lord. He got back again where he needed to be. Starting over again. That's what we get sometimes. You got to get back to where God wants you to be. This is not what God intended for you. So he goes right back to Bethel, where he had that tent at. And he calls on God's name again. Lord, I messed up when I left last time. I want you to know I'm better now. I got it. I'm not leaving this land no more, Lord. I'm where I need to be. I'm right. I'm sorry, God. So now we got Abram calling on the name of the Lord, just as he had at the beginning. Any comments, questions? And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. For their substance was great, so that the cloud could not dwell, so that they could not dwell together. What happens? Abraham is blessed, and everybody around him. Lot gets blessed too. How did he get his wealth? Uncle Abram, excuse me. Because of his Uncle Abram, he got all that money, all that wealth. People around you get blessed because of your presence, because God is there. When God blesses you, he blesses everybody else. Now, people like to think blessings come in as silver and gold and those things. Nowadays, we know the greatest blessing you've ever had is Jesus, and you share him with everyone else. Well, they couldn't stay together. They had too much wealth. They could not dwell together. Verse 7. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle, the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled in the land. In other words, Abraham is rich. Lot is rich. Their cattle, the herdmen, it says here, the herdmen of the Abram's cattle. All their workers were fighting. And the Perizzite and the Canaanite, they see God's people fighting. I mean, the people around notice that y'all can't get along together. There was strife, and it says Canaanite and Perizzite dwelled in the land. In other words, sinners begin to watch what you do when God's people can't get along. And they begin to notice it. And there was a strife there. Who speaks up? Abram. And Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife. I pray thee between me and thee, with thy herdman and my herdman and thy herdman, for we be what? Uncle and nephew. No. Clearly, you will find that Abram looks at Lot and he says, we are brothers. He'll say it again. He'll say it again in this chapter. We are brothers. I think it's chapter 14, he'll call them brother. I think it's chapter 14, he calls them brothers again. That's what you see, you folks. There's a place in the Bible where God looks at you and you say, well, that's not my brother. My son Matthew sent me one of those things last night. It was a lady playing the guitar in a church, and man, it was old fashioned. And she was singing King G. You know, I love that kind of stuff. And I said, thank you, brother. And after I finished sending out the text, I realized that's exactly what I was supposed to put down. That's my brother. Well, son, that's my brother. I appreciate that. And I was glad that you think like that. That's exactly how God said. So Abraham looked at Lot. Hey, we're brethren. It is not the whole land before us. It is not the whole land before thee. Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will take the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. All right, so Abram comes up with a solution. We need to fire these herdmen so we can get better guys. We need to get along together. Well, maybe you need to give up everything. Let me just be in control over everything. No. We just need to separate. Now, separation is huge in the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. And the rest of the Bible is going to be about separation. God is a God about separation. He does. He says you have to leave and separate so many times. It's always that way. Always that way. So they're going to separate. Now in verses 10 and 11, you begin to find the idea of Lot. Well, the Bible said that Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan. By the way, what was he looking at? What plain? Jordan. And what was the plain that Abram came to first? When he came to Canaan? Moreh. Remember? Moreh. M-O-R-E-H. Right?
Okay.
The plain of Jordan is what's going to be on fire one day. But that's where he chose. Why did he choose it? Well, the Bible says that before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar, the plain of Jordan, that before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, that's how it was. It was a beautiful place. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed where?
East.
Directions in the Bible are important, especially in Genesis. Look at the east. He journeyed east, and they separated themselves from one another. The east was always a bad place to be. The people came from the east when they came to the plain of Shinar, remember? Here it is, you find again that Lot journeyed eastward to the plain of Jordan. And they separated themselves one from another. There's that separation. And Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Exceedingly.
So what does that mean, exceedingly?
They were just not just sinners, they were bad sinners. They were sinners above all others. They were just wicked men because of the homosexuality. Because that's what
our nation calls it okay today. It's nothing wrong with
So what are we? Are we wicked exceedingly?
it.
Yes. We are a wicked
You
nation.
think it's okay, yeah.
Well, the worst thing is that we have Christians who will support that.
I know.
They'll say, well, people are hungry and they're starving to death. Wouldn't you rather die holy than to live unrighteous? There you go. That's no different than what they are now, are they? I'd rather live and save my body than to save my soul. You know, if you despise your life, you'll save it. But if you try to save your life, you'll lose it. No. If you despise your life, you'll save it. If you despise your physical life here, you'll save your eternal life. But if you love this life, you're going to lose your life. Jesus says that same tongue twister. I had to learn it, and I got it. I figured it out. All right, now we get to the bad part. Ready? Here we go. So they're separated, right? Everything's good. You can imagine Abram. Wow, we got peace in the land. Our cattlemen ain't fighting their cattlemen. And oh man, things are so good now. Then God shows up. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot had separated from him. And this is when God came. Immediately, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and thy seed forever. You know what he's saying? You told Lot to go one way and you go the other. You look that way, you look that way, you look that way, and you look that way. This is all your land. I'm giving it to you and your seed. You don't give this land away. It's yours and your family. I mean, it's like immediately God just, as soon as they separated, God comes in and says, wait a minute. This is your land. You stand and look north, south, east, west. This is your land. He goes further. He says, for all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Here it is, verse 17. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth. The length and the breadth. You walk this land. This is yours. He's imprinting it in his mind. Not only are you going to see it, you're going to walk it. Don't ever tell me that somebody else is that this is yours. You don't give it to anybody else. He may have gone to the plain of Jordan. That's mine. That's your land. Every place is yours. It's as if God comes and rebukes him in a very gentle way and says, oh, no. Don't you tell me that. The two things about the promise, there's two things. Your seed will be as the dust of the earth. This land is going to be yours. That's what God has always promised him. You'll be a great nation. All the nations will there be blessed. The land is important. This is your land. And as soon as Lot left, the first thing God reminded him of, wait a minute, come here. You look north and south, east and west. What do you see? Just land. It's your land. I want you to walk up and down it, the length. I want you to walk up and down it, the breadth of it. And you look at it.
Did that make you messed up again?
Yes. He messed up by thinking, hey, well, you go this way and I'll go this way. In the mind of Abram, everything was settled and you're doing good. But God reminds him, said, wait a minute. You don't give this stuff away. He ain't got his part of the land and you got yours. Oh, no. It's all yours, okay? What he should have said is, Lot, we got to separate. I'll let you stay in my corner over yonder. I'll let you stay over there. That's still my land now. But you can stay over there. That's the kind of attitude he should have had. It belonged to God. He hadn't taken ownership like he should have taken for it. And by the way, do you notice how he says it? You'll find these imageries here. In chapter 15, chapter 13, he says, if you can number the dust of the earth, you can number your seed. In chapter 15, he says, look at the stars. I think it's verse 5. If you can number the stars of heaven, you can number your people. Dust of the earth, stars of heaven. That's the imagery he says about how many people you're going to have come from you. That's 7:58. We'll stop. Let's pick up at verse 16, brother. I'll pick up there again next week. Okay? All right?
Yep.
Good lesson. Good. You can find so many things there. You realize Abram was just like everybody else. God is discipling this man. By the way, you've seen no rebuke of this man. He simply reminds him. He gets back on track. He got back to Bethel, called on the name of the Lord again. He knows what to do, and he does. And then when he messed up here, God reminded him, hey, this is all your land, okay? All right, God bless you. We'll stand, have a word of prayer, and be dismissed. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience.